Joining us now, someone who fled Cuba's communist regime when he was just 12 years old with his family. He's now a senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation. He's a journalist. He's Mike Gonzalez. Mike, it's great to have you on. Your reaction to what's going on in Cuba?
Hi, Beth. Well, I think that the Cubans have been very brave to take to the streets in the manner that they had. They knew what they were going to meet, the fate they were going to meet. For 62 years, they lived under communism. They knew they were going to get beat up, shot, dragged out of their houses and sent to dungeons with rats and feces, and bad things were going to happen to members of their family, and yet they did what they did. The Biden administration has the responsibility to speak up for America. We saw overnight how Black Lives Matter put out a statement supporting the communist thugs beating up Cubans. The Democratic Socialists of America have done the same thing. President Biden has a responsibility to tell the government of Cuba and the people of Cuba that they don't speak for Americans, that he speaks for Americans. He has to seize the moment. He hasn't done so yet.
Okay, so we've got now reports coming in 30,000 people in Cuba, dissidents, have been disappeared, arrested over the last 5 years. We've got Senator Mitch McConnell saying, quote, some naive Americans on the left seem intent on, once again, running interference for the Cuban regime. They still buy the propaganda that Cuba is a socialist paradise with a model healthcare and education system that the U.S. should emulate. So why do the loudest voices in the room get to direct the conversation on this?
Well, only on the left. And that's probably the reason why President Biden is paralyzed. This White House is baffled by the simplest of tasks. It's very easy to seize the moment and to have a tear down this wall moment and to channel his inner Ronald Reagan if he has one. But yes, I mean, only American liberals believe that the Cuban healthcare system is good. One of the sparks for this protest was that the government botched up the response to COVID-19 so badly. The vaccines they have are no good. People are dying. Obviously, the protest very quickly morphed into pro-democracy movement, where you hear people chanting just now on social media as Libertad, not vaccine. So I think it's important that the administration seize the moment, speak for all Americans, and tell the people of Cuba, and especially the government of Cuba, the American people are for freedom, and they're for freedom in Cuba.
Yeah, we've got protests in support of Cuba in 7 states happening around the country. Let's listen to former Vice President Mike Pence. He was at the Heritage Foundation at an event there. He went after Democrats for being, quote, hesitant to criticize their communist friends in Cuba. Watch Mike Pence here.
For more than 60 years, the people of Cuba have labored under a communist dictatorship that has stifled their liberty, silenced voices of dissent, squandered their future. And while some on the far left are hesitant to criticize their communist friends in Cuba, let me say clearly, the American people stand with the courageous men and women of Cuba that are marching to reclaim their history of libertad.
How can they do that? How can they reclaim their history of freedom?
It's going to be very hard. That is the reality of it. The Castro family, which is really the power behind the figure leaf President Miguel Diaz-Canel, the Castro family is not going to just have a peaceful transition to power. They will shoot every last Cuban demonstrating if they have to. It matters a lot when the leader of the free world stands up and speaks the truth. We know from Soviet refuseniks in the mid-80s, Natan Sharansky, who's now an activist in Israel, wrote about how much it meant to them in the Gulag when they heard that Ronald Reagan had called the Soviet Union the evil empire. They were reaffirmed in their sacrifice. It's very hard for the people of Cuba. They know that by taking to the streets, they face what they're facing today. We need to stand morally with them, and we need to do everything we can to stop that brutal government from shutting down the internet. We have the technology to do this through balloons and everything else and other things. Do everything we can to let the 11 million people of Cuba communicate with each other.
Got it. Mike Gonzalez, thanks for joining us. Come back soon, okay?
Thank you, Beth. Anytime.